freak out and run in other directions. I would say that they could have been led to the areas where they ended up dying, but there's no gunshot wounds, you know what I mean? Or there's no sign that they were ever, well, I guess just no gunshot wounds, nothing to show that they were forcibly told to go there. And besides that, why would there be like multiple areas? Why would one party be found 1.5 kilometers away and then the other one 75 kilometers? So that to me kind of debunks it on that one. So you know that whatever chased them away from there had to have been out of fear. You know what I mean? They knew that whatever was there, they had to get away from. And I don't know, maybe it could have been a Yeti or some type of cryptid attack that caused it. Now, I did go through the severity of the stuff to them. So with that, I want to go back, make sure that I'm where I need to be first of all, because I want to go over some of these injuries. Now the injuries, when it comes to especially for the hikers, that the ones particularly that were found in the ravine, those were really severe and unusual for a scenario that involved hypothermia or an avalanche. Okay. Now, one of them, his name was Nikolai Thibeaux or Thibeaux Brignol. Now, his injuries, he had a severe skull fracture. Okay. Now, excerpts compared the force required to cause such an injury to that of a car crash. This level of trauma is not typically associated with an avalanche, as there were no external injuries or sign of crushing. So that was one of the things that was taking place. Then there was Lyudmila Dunanana. Now she was the one that I told you about with the tongue. Now she had several broken ribs. She had a missing tongue and eyes. They were missing. Now the missing tongue and eyes are often attributed to post-mortem scavenging of animals. However, the fractures to her ribs were so extreme that they could only be caused by an immense force akin to what might be experienced in a high-impact collision. So you have two people with a high-impact collision. Now, they also say for scavenging by animals, but I know that I've watched 2 documentaries on this, and both of these documentaries say that there was no evidence of animals scavenging the bodies before the search parties found them. Okay, so that's just not even a part of the equation, and you can clearly see that there's no bite wounds or anything on the bodies, because the videos that are put out on there are pretty extensive. They even have footage of the bodies where you can see what they look like when they were found. So if you're interested in checking that out, go for it. You'll see what I'm talking about. This is probably one of the most strangest incidents I've ever read on, and I was really glad that it was suggested in WWOW Talk, by the way. And I'm sorry that it took so long to get to this. So hopefully the guy who brought it up in chat hears this, and he hears me say I apologize for taking so long to do it, because I really did like this story, and I appreciate that. So the earlier the the earlier discovered bodies, the ones that were found before the others that were 75 kilometers away, that they exhibited fewer traumatic injuries but showed signs of death from hypothermia. However, the fact that they fled the tent barefooted and inadequately clothed suggests that they were responding to like a dire and immediate threat, like something was happening and they had to get out of there. Now, the injuries that they had weren't as extensive. That is true. But their knuckles and the abrasions on them. Okay, these weren't abrasions that were caused because they ran into a tree or something. You know what I mean? Or they fell on the ground. These were deep wounds that were caused to them, and the knuckles looked like they had literally punched something to the point where freaking their knuckles were exposed and the meat was freaking peeling away from their knuckles. I mean, these were serious injuries, and that's something that I wanted to point out too. Now, the avalanche theory has been criticized for several reasons. It was a lack of avalanche evidence. Now, the rescuers didn't observe significant snow accumulation around the tent. There was absolutely not enough snow that was there, and it was like I told you about the ski sticks. They were still sticking up around the tent. And that was the thing that really stuck out to me. That told me right there that there's no way that this could have been the cause of an avalanche. The tent itself was partially standing, which would be unlikely if it had been hit by an avalanche strong enough to cause the injuries observed. You know, for the injuries that these people had taken, the avalanche that would have caused that would have also knocked that tent down. It wouldn't have been standing. So that is another thing that I didn't mention, but it is true. There's no way that tent could have been up. And this wasn't anything that was stoutly built. It was just an average tent. It was a pup tent, don't get me wrong. But it would have come down. Now, avalanches typically cause external injuries, such as bruising or abrasions alongside fractures. In this case, many of the injuries were internal, with no corresponding external trauma. So there was damage on the inside and not on the outside. The tent was cut open from the inside, suggesting panic. Recent investigations and theories have also suggested that maybe this tent wasn't cut from the inside either. I just recently, within the last couple of years, seen a documentary where a woman in Russia had done her investigation years after it had happened, and she said that the way that the stitching is on the tent and everything, and the way that it looked with the cutting, there was a way that it could have possibly been from the outside as well. It's been a while since I've seen it, but that's one thing I did want to point out. I thought I'd have time to pull up more information about that, but I've had some serious issues this week. Anything that could have gone wrong did go wrong. I ended up, of all things, losing my electricity because of a snowstorm, which is kind of ironic, I guess. It came through North America. It was big when they were just talking about it. Started out in Kansas City. By the time it hit us in southern Illinois, it wasn't as strong, but it was able to cause ice covering the trees and causing blackouts all over the area. So I've been having a pretty interesting week, needless to say. So now if the hikers did believe that they were in an avalanche and it was imminent, they would likely have taken more clothes and footwear for fleeing, rather than leaving unprepared in sub-zero temperatures. Now, these, like I said, were very highly trained survivalists. You know what I mean? I don't see them doing that without there being a logical reason in that kind of situation. I really don't see that. So now in 2020 there was an investigation. It was reopened by the Russian government. It was attributed to the accident, and they attributed the accident to a slab avalanche, a smaller and more localized avalanche. However, even this explanation leaves several questions unanswered. Okay, there was traces of radiation found on the hikers, on the hikers' clothing that weren't explained. Now, while some people argued that this could have been related to their work in technical fields, it also adds a layer of mystery. I know that one of the people that was part of the expedition had previously been working in a facility that had a nuclear fallout. We always hear about, the one that happened in Ukraine all the time, but a lot of people aren't aware that also happened earlier in another incident that had happened. And they say that left fall off from the radiation at that area when he was working there could have been on the clothing that he was wearing when they were going on the expedition. And I know that they said that, but then there was 2 people that was found with radiation on them. There wasn't one person. And besides that, I don't think that level of radiation would have remained on him for the amount of time, because I believe it was well over a year before he went on this expedition. I'm not quite sure about that. So, but it does seem odd that after they did the radiation test, they did find radiation on 2 of them. Only one of the people that was involved in the expedition was actually working for a nuclear facility before the expedition. So that's what was really fishy about it to me. The footprints leading away from the tent suggest the group was moving at varying speeds and directions, inconsistent with an organized escape from an avalanche. The hikers' injuries and their state, in the state of their bodies suggests that they may have survived for hours after leaving the tent.